we can't be anti-meeting anymore. And there are some meetings that truly matter. And it's more about having strategic meetings and making sure that we don't just focus on the day-to-day.
Welcome back to Duo On Air. I'm Abby.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're the ex-agency turned entrepreneurial team that puts the Duo in Duo Collective. Our boutique organic marketing agency specializes in SEO, social media strategy, and branding.
We're an everyday pair of business besties / marketing experts obsessed with helping our community learn more about what it takes to run a business.
Which is why on Duo On Air, we're not holding anything back. We're giving you all the info we know about how to grow your business organically so you can be the confident CEO you were made to be.
And how to navigate life as a small business owner.
Whether it's on your own or with your best friend by your side, so grab your coffee
or your mimosa, we don't judge,
and settle in for a quick value-packed episode of Marketing Tips.
Welcome back to the Duo On Air podcast. This is episode number 133, and we have a question for you. How do you feel about meetings?
Hate them.
So we've all sat in these pointless meetings before where you easily could have accomplished this in a single email. And everyone's like, why am I here? Why am I sitting in this meeting? This is a waste of my time. I could be more productive elsewhere. There's memes and reels and TikToks all over the place of this, of like, why is this meeting happening? And according to a study by Doodle, the average professional spends approximately 23 hours per week in meetings, which translates to 1,200 hours per year or 50 full days spent in meetings. So that's 2 months of your whole year that you spend in a meeting. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Which, if you think about it, a 40-hour work week, half the time, 23 hours, you're spending in meetings. And this likely is accumulated from a lot of like corporate culture, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but just knowing that statistic alone really makes you want to say, peace out to meetings. I'm not doing them. I'm done. And this kind of anti-meeting culture that's happened is all about getting stuff done, because if you're in less meetings, you can be more productive, which makes sense, right?
Maybe.
So for the last, I don't know how many years, maybe 5 since we've been in business, we have really approached the anti-meeting culture. And I'd say me more so than not, because I don't have dependable childcare. So like the idea of using any time I have where my kids are occupied in a meeting feels counterproductive.
Yes.
So I probably stemmed most of it, but also we came from the corporate days of, sitting in meetings, those pointless meetings all the time. And we really did not like it.
Yeah. And I think because once we started our own thing, we're like, hey, we're our own bosses. We don't have to do this. We don't have to sit in a 2-hour long brainstorm, or we don't have to, sit and make this meeting for this thing when we can just take it off of our plates and do it ourselves, because that gives us more time back to actually put the work in.
Yeah.
And so I think we got in this, when we quit, we were very anti-agency. We were like, oh, agency sucks. Like we don't
need process.
We don't need process. We don't need a project management tool. We'll figure it out. Like, yeah. And I think that since then we've been growing and we've been learning things, and we've had growing pains along the way. And this is one of those growing pains that we just recently discovered that we should have been having more meetings consistently throughout the year together, or with, our extended team. And we just have lost track of that.
Yep.
And unfortunately it has kind of hurt us. And that's a story for a different day. But we just wanted to talk about meetings on this episode, but we realized, oh my gosh, we actually should be having more meetings.
Yeah. It was kind of like an aha moment where a lot of like problems that we've been having, just like from a business partnership standpoint, a business standpoint, like lacking clarity and vision and like things like that, it was just an aha moment of like, well, no shit, we're having these because we're not talking. Like, we're not having these conversations. And we cut out weekly check-ins. We cut out like monthly check-ins. We cut out annual check-ins.
We have monthlies or we have weeklies on the calendar, but every like the day before we're like, oh no, we don't gotta meet. We're cool. Like, sure, just cancel that thing.
And also that's with our whole team. It's not with us, like just us two as business partners. And I think so whether you're a business partnership or you're solo, I still think this is relevant for you because even if it's not an actual meeting on your calendar, I think blocking time or scheduling, like pairing up with a business bestie who also needs accountability and needs help with this. I think this is absolutely something that we need to be aware of the anti-meeting culture and like not having pointless meetings, but cutting them all out is not the answer.
Right. I think it's a matter of being super strategic about your meetings and making sure that you come with an agenda and meeting notes and you've done the things that you need to do to prep for that meeting. So when you get to that meeting, you're all ready, you have this agenda, you go through everything that you need to go through and it has purpose versus just saying, okay, we're going to meet once a week and we're going to talk about whatever. We don't like, we did that for a while. And sometimes I think we talked about our personal life.
We didn't talk about we didn't talk about work. We would just gab. And so, which is fine too. Like we need that in our life, but we also need
structure.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about like how we're going to make sure that these meetings are efficient. I think even just like backing up a little bit of like how we got to this point. So basically we kind of cut out all meetings. We have one weekly meeting, like Court said, where we meet with our team. So everyone meets, making sure that nothing's, no one's dropped a ball, an email, like there's no questions that we weren't able to get answers on, like all of that kind of stuff. So it is a good meeting. But it's definitely not filling the hole of everything else.
No.
So what kind of started to happen to us as of lately has been, there's been a lack of communication because we're each in our own silos, like just working and jamming and like prioritizing clients. And I think we all do this, like especially as a client service based business, you prioritize the people that make you money. And then you kind of forget to prioritize your own business. And if you do that for too long, it ends up being a problem.
Yes, it actually ends up hurting your business.
Yeah.
Because you're not focusing enough on your business and you're focusing probably too much on your clients, right? You have to find that fine balance of like treating yourself kind of as a client, but also making sure that you're delivering what you need to your clients and making sure that you're doing both every week, that you're not just like dedicating one full week to a client. You have to make sure that you're in your business too. So I think a lot of that was happening. And then that lack of communication within our own business of like, what are we tracking towards? What are we moving towards? How are finances, how are clients, how are our internal projects going? And because we put these meetings off, or we just were like, oh, I'm too busy today, I've got these things to work on. We kind of both lost track of our business and what was happening with our business. And that lack of communication is where we were like, oh my gosh, this isn't great. And we're fine. But it's just like small things in your business when you run into these roadblocks, you are like, what is the underlying problem here? And a big one for us was that lack of communication.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, you just lose sight of the bigger vision. Like we are so stuck in the day-to-day that we've lost sight of that big picture and what we're working towards because we're not talking about it enough. So that is a huge thing of like, we need to get out of the day-to-day. We need to force ourselves out of the to-do list because we're so consumed by it sometimes that we need to take a step back. And the only way to do that, honestly, especially when you're busy, like the work's not going away. You're not, oftentimes we're like, when this ends, we'll have more time. When this ends, we'll have more time. We've been saying that for 5 years.
Yeah. I think we just have to I think everybody says that, right?
Yeah.
In like your personal life and your work life, it's like, okay, once I get through this, then I can start my workout routine. Or once I get through this big thing, or once we get through the holidays.
Then we can have our annual planning meeting.
Right. And that is never going to stop. That is never going to stop. So I think we have to figure out, like, how do we manage that without stressing ourselves out more?
Yeah.
So it's all about management and making sure that we have these things scheduled and scheduled in advance. I think that's a huge part of this too, is scheduling those bigger meetings in advance, because then they're on the calendar. People can prep for them. You know when they're coming up. It's not an all of a sudden like, oh shit, we should really do this meeting before the end of the year. Okay, we've only got 5 weeks.
How it has been. Like, it has been like that. Like, we always have these big dreams and visions, but we wait too long or we just put it off. So we've kind of made a very conscious decision to add a lot of meetings back in. And we'll probably talk more about like how we got to this point in the future, because we're literally in it right now. So we don't have anything at this point to share.
And we don't want to cry in the episode. We're maybe a little emotional about it right now. So let us get past that.
But I'd say like we basically have each like taken roles that are going to help kind of, and we've talked through like, okay, how many meetings are we going to have about this a year? And then like, let's get this stuff scheduled now. Like, we're not going to keep putting this off. We're going to be booking meetings that are 6 months away, like on purpose, because we know that we need them on our calendar.
I think I booked one for spring of 2025 already.
Yeah, right? I know. So basically, one of the big things, so because just adding meetings into our schedule, again, isn't the goal. Like, we don't want to get to the point where we're having 23 hours of meetings a week. No, that is not it. We don't want to go back to that corporate world where we're having meetings, just have meetings. And if it ever is, we get to a meeting and we realize like, oh, we actually don't need to talk about this today. Or like, we thought we needed this quarterly, but we maybe only need it biannually, or we thought monthly and now we need it every other month or whatever. Like, we are giving ourselves a moment to reevaluate things, but we're being really smart about the types of meetings we're having, how often we're going to have them. So like setting rules of like, how often are we going to talk about finances? And then like, what types of meetings do we need to have? How often are we going to talk about our bigger marketing plan? Like, how many meetings are we going to have on that? And setting those goals, it's almost like setting meeting goals.
It is kind of right now, yeah.
And then also when are we going to have them? We realized that we would always try to have a holiday and a planning meeting at the same time. And we'd be like, let's book a hotel and let's make a 2-day thing of it. And let's do some fun, like mission vision planning one day and then go out with our husbands the next day. And then we end up going out with our husbands and spending a night at a hotel and having a great time. But then we feel guilty after because we didn't do the planning.
Yeah.
And that it's never worked.
They need to be separate. And I think that's something too that we need to focus on in the future of Duo, is making sure that we're setting aside time to just get together and be friends and humans and have fun, but separating that from these strategic planning meetings because they just don't go hand in hand at all.
Yeah. So we just booked our annual planning meeting for September because we were like, we need to talk sooner. Like, we need more clarity on these conversations. And we know that we can't wait until end of year. That's not going to happen. And we love fall. So let's be honest, like
we're really excited.
a little getaway in the fall time sounds amazing. So they were just having these conversations about when we need to do these things actually opened our eyes to like, oh, this is why it hasn't worked for us in the past. And that's been really helpful. We also divided things up. So like making each other owners of certain meetings. So like, you own this meeting, I own this meeting. You are responsible for coming up with the agenda and making sure all the content is prepped, and like I am for these meetings and all of that. So like that provides a lot of clarity too, because then oh, I have this week. Like, I need to make sure I have this prepped so that we can talk about it. Because in the past, I think we haven't done that.
No.
And we've made these meetings working meetings, which sometimes feels like maybe it'd be more productive, but it's not, because then you're not allowed to have the conversations that come after the work.
Right.
And like those are the conversations that actually matter. Like, okay, the work is great, but now what? Like, now what are we seeing? Are there patterns? Are there things that we can do? Can we brainstorm? Can we have more creativity? Like, a lot of times when you're doing the work, you're not in a creative space. And sometimes these meetings need you to be in a creative space, and that's important. So that's another thing that I think making sure we have owners and we have accountability and we have agendas will help us from just talking about our kids the whole time.
And I think too, knowing that each meeting has an owner helps us to feel like we're in control and the owner of that meeting, because we're a duo. And if there's any partnerships out here or out there listening, you probably understand this too. Sometimes it's really hard to separate those things, right? Because you're 50-50. So you kind of feel like, well, we should be 50-50 on everything, but that's not always the case either. Like somebody can own this and somebody can own that. And that's how it should be actually, because then it gives that person that authority and that leadership to know, okay, this is my thing. I'm owning this. So I really have to structure this how I feel like it's going to be best, and what we're what we're going to talk about, what we're going to get through, what are our goals. So it really takes that guesswork out of it too. Like Abby doesn't have to sit there and be like, okay, we're having this marketing meeting, but what does Courtney need me to do for it? Like, instead of her guessing, I can just be like, okay, all I need you to do is bring this, and the rest of it's taken care of. So you don't have to sit there and kind of wonder what the other person's doing or what they're going to bring to the meeting. Because I think in the past, we've just had quote unquote meetings, and we show up and we're like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Like, this is what I'm doing, and that's what you're doing, and cool, high five.
Yeah. Because also it felt like, I mean, sometimes I think you have to be in a partnership too, where you feel comfortable being able to tell the other person what to do sometimes. Like, even
which
just
feels
like
weird. Yeah. But
like, you tell me what to bring, like, and then I'll bring it. But at the same time, saying those things of like what you need to do also helps those meetings be more productive. And like, that's the whole point, right?
And I'd rather have Abby be like, okay, this is what you need to bring to this meeting, X, Y, and Z. And then I'll be like, cool, that's what I got to bring. And then I got to show up.
You don't need to think about it anymore. Yeah. So we're excited to share more ins and outs of this and like how we're navigating all of this, because I think as our business grows, we have to evolve in our roles within our business. And that's became super clear this year. So there's a lot of things that we're doing this year that hopefully we'll be able to share, but we're not going to share it while we're in it. We're going to share it from the learnings later. So, but the meetings are the very first thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and freelancers and small business owners really are anti-meeting. And we just wanted to share our approach to that, because we were that way too. And it's became abundantly clear that we can't be anti-meeting anymore. And there are some meetings that truly matter. And it's more about having smart, strategic meetings and making sure that we don't just focus on the day-to-day and focus on the productivity, because sometimes being unproductive is necessary. Like, sometimes you have to be just more carefree. Like, that's why we started these businesses, right? It's not just to always be productive and always be busting your butt to get to a point where you can take a break or you can take a vacation.
I actually think that halts your productivity and your growth, because you're not giving yourself time to step back and relax and re-energize your brain. And if you're constantly go, 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 and you're just trying to produce and push things out, you don't have time to stop and be creative. And I'm not saying this is just for creatives. Everybody is creative. Everybody has a creative part to them. And that looks different for everybody, but you need to step back to allow that creativity to re-energize and come back. And that's where you're going to strike gold and have these better ideas and be more strategic. And if you don't give yourself that time, you're never going to grow in your business.
Yeah, I read something when I was like reading up about the anti-meeting culture before we were recording this episode. And a company said the reason why we're anti-meeting, and they explained that, well, it takes 23 minutes for someone to get back into a workflow and focus again when their workflow has been broken. So basically, you need to have 23 minutes before and after every meeting to get back into it. So I think that's interesting. I think like that's a good point, because a lot of times we schedule back-to-back meetings. So like,
and that gets tough.
Yeah. So when we have these meetings that need to be more creative, you shouldn't back another meeting right onto it. Like maybe you should block off half the day, and which is what we talked about. Like we need to get out of our houses. We need to go to coffee shops. We need to go places and meet somewhere else, because that helps. And then that also gives you that kind of buffer from a workflow standpoint to kind of get out of it. But I don't think that's an excuse to never have a meeting.
No. Oh man.
Well, anyways, we are excited about, and honestly, I'm excited about the meetings we have. Is that weird?
I am. No, I actually am. And I think it's just going to be fun to like grow and evolve into this, more of a light meeting culture. I don't know what we want to call it. Maybe
right. It's just running a business.
Right.
It's just like actually talking about our business and not just talking about our clients or focusing on the next lead or focusing on the inquiries. It's like,
I think it's going to make us better business owners, and it's going to help Duo grow to that next level, whatever that looks like, and however we want to grow that.
Yeah.
Again, because I think a lot of it is that communication piece. And I think that having these meetings is a huge part of that communication. Like we're getting together, we're talking about our goals, individual together, how we want to approach things, what we want to do in the future for Duo. And I'm actually really excited. About
me too.
The meetings.
I know. I think it's because we're excited to talk about our business because we put it on the back burner for so long.
We had. Yeah. And the more you work in your business, I find actually the more I work on Duo, the more excited I get. But I feel like I'm so involved in the day-to-day with my clients that I tend to push Duo aside because that's the easiest thing to push aside.
Yeah.
Because you don't have...
It's easy to say, I'll do it later and then never do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if you're listening to this, and hopefully this inspired you maybe to like rethink how you're doing meetings. If you're not a partnership, find a biz bestie, like find someone, hold each other accountable. Have some of these meetings together, like annual planning meetings, or maybe it's just having like monthly finance meetings. If you are friends with someone who you feel totally clear with having that with, or maybe you hire a quarterly like financial person that can help you, that you can then meet with them quarterly to hold yourself accountable too. So hiring coaches or working with a friend, like there's so many options to make sure that you also hold yourself accountable to having certain meetings that are going to help you grow your business rather than just focusing on the day-to-day.
And also, before we go, I want to say that my goal is to make these meetings fun, every single one of them, even finances, because who likes
I told her she's allowed to add woo-woo into it every once in a while.
We're going to make these meetings fun, and we're going to tell you, we're going to have a podcast episode that talks about how all this process went and how you can actually make meetings fun, because I don't think they have to be stale.
Yeah.
I don't think meetings have to be stale. They can be fun. You can have icebreakers. You can do different things. Like, not that Abby and I need icebreakers,
I can't
right?
wait.
But like, maybe we'll start to learn stuff about each other.
I know.
But my goal is to make sure that every meeting is fun, so you get excited about it, right? So it's not just another thing you have to do, or it's taking away from your productivity, or you just want to cancel it. Yeah. Because then you're looking forward to those meetings, and it's more than just, again, like this stale agency meeting.
Yeah, I love that. Even like, and I told this to Courtney, I was like, the idea, like, I don't mind having meetings, but sometimes it's the planning the time and the place of like where to go that causes me more anxiety. Like, just tell me where to go and when to go there, and I'm good. Like,
that shit is like right up my alley. But the things that terrify me are finances. So how
am I going to make them fun? I'm going to have to ask ChatGPT that one. How do you make finance meetings fun?
I'll also try to think of it. We need to bring a money gun.
Oh, that would be fun.
Your
ready?
Mom has one.
If you get this right, I'll shoot you with money.
See, we're going to make them so fun, you guys. I can't wait to have another episode about this. But
all right, well, stay tuned for all the fun stuff in the world of meetings.
If you liked this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes dropping every Monday. Plus, if you haven't already, please leave us a review and don't hesitate to share any new episode ideas. We love hearing from you and creating this content for you. See you next week.